What even is that title? I think I got inspired by the Aura Wars name for that last series of videos, so I'm just subconsciously thinking every video series past that point should be a variation on that. The farm feuds, the gold... I didn't script this. I probably should have. Basically, what the title is trying to allude to is like the Aura Wars before it. This video is going to be tackling the monumental task of categorizing, comparing, and contrasting every single farming item in the game and charting them on a tier chart from S to F. Well, A to F. With an S. Well, actually, it's not even A to... because we skip E. Okay, get off my back. It's that sort of tier that all the other cool kids use, right? Like we touched on in the Aura Wars, these videos allow for us to directly size up two farming items to see which one actually comes out on top, which one has more pros than cons, which is more useful in every game, and which is amazingly useful in a certain type of game to facilitate it getting a much higher ranking overall. That's pretty much what we're doing here. The problem is, of course, when you take a step back and realize that literally every item can be called farming item. So let's rein it back a little, right? Let's just set some ground rules. If we don't, the series could end up going for like 3.5 hours. With some guidelines, we can hopefully cut it down to maybe 45 minutes. That's doable, right? Okay, so the ground rules. Obviously, right off the bat, every item that the general public would agree is a farming item, in that it's an item that's rushed by carriers and mids and core offlaners for the express purpose of getting it early and then using it to accelerate your farm beyond that. So obviously, inarguably, you have the Magnificent Seven, if you're okay with me calling them that for the remainder of the series. You've got your Battle Furies, your Midases, your Maelstroms, Mantas, Masks of Madnesses, Mjolnirs, and Radiances. I feel like nobody would really argue with these so far, right? Awesome, okay. So, the Radiance one you could probably argue was hogging the spotlight because it was featured so heavily in the Aura Wars video, but shh with all that. Even though these video series might sometimes overlap with mentioning an item, these mentions occur in a completely different context, and so, honestly, the same item could fall wildly short of where it landed in the previous video. I think Radiance got an A, but who knows, maybe it's an F because it's so expensive or something. For this series, right, we are looking at every item in the game as a farming item, strictly a farming item. Just like how we compared last video's items as how well they stacked up as Aura items, in this video, we are primarily focusing on how well, or how not so well, directly helps with the acquisition of more money beyond the point where we get it. With that in mind, it would actually directly feed into the idea that listing all of these in order of gold cost could actually show a really good progression from amazing items because they're cheap to amazing items despite how expensive they are. When it comes specifically to items that assist in farming, the understanding is that we'll be getting them earlier, right? The earlier the better. So this literally means that if an item is more expensive, it automatically loses points that it has to then compensate for in a major way with the actual perks that you get from buying it. If an item were to cost 10,000 gold, you better believe it's got an amazing active. So with that in mind, we'll just finish listing the other types of items we'll be adding to the chart, right? And then getting right into looking at them all, from cheapest to not so cheapest. First, no boots will be mentioned in the series, even though they nearly all facilitate the ability to get more farm. I mean, even without looking at the rest of the sets, they literally just let you get to creeps faster, but that'll be for a different video. We also won't be looking at any items that have a negligible sway in farming speed, or items that do help in farming speed, but more as a side effect, wherein the reason that we're picking up these items is a completely different purpose. Items like Desolator. Desolator does help farming, of course, by virtue of the negative armor, but you don't really buy it for farming, it's just a byproduct. You buy it specifically for towers, or for getting Roche, or for more burst damage, you know? We also won't really be talking too much about items that are farming items for very specific heroes. Bloodstone for Storm Spirit, Satanic for Huskar, Ags on the occasion where its upgrade is directly a farming upgrade for that hero, Crystallis for Wraith King. Oh right, they took that out. The bastards. And then also we won't be talking about all damage items, regardless of the fact that damage items universally do directly amplify farm speeds, but we will be talking about a few. And we'll also be talking about items that don't give any damage, yet assist in farm speed by other means like mobility, survivability, mana regen, that sort of thing. So, we won't get pedantic and say Observer Wards can help with farm, even though they do as a byproduct of their ability, but we will say items like Blink, Armlet, and even Necrobook. Get a bag of popcorn, this is a long one. Starting off, you'd assume that the first big one would be like a Quiller or something. Well, no, not really. In fact, the first item is not even actually an item at all. It's a pseudo-item. It's a combo that Dota doesn't even turn into a new item in itself. And it's called Quelling Blade and Stout Shield. Yes, the first farming item is both of these at once, for some reason. I'll elaborate. At 200 gold for Quelling Blade and 200 for Stout Shield, this is one of the absolute best farming items that you can get right off the bat, right as you spawn into the game for the first time. The reason that they're paired up is because while Stout Shield is great for damage block and Quelling Blade is great for a little extra damage on creeps, it's only when you have both of them that you enable yourself the ability to jungle, to tank creeps, to actually farm. So, Quelling Blade gives 24 bonus damage to all creeps if you're melee, 7 if you're ranged. Pretty hefty drop off, right? I know, but like weirdly still a pretty cost efficient way to get 7 damage, even if you're ranged. It's 200 gold. Stout Shield grants a 50% chance to block 20 damage from any form of physical attack, and again, a little less at 9 if you're ranged. Okay, but while a bit of durability is good here and there, simply having 24 extra damage does not a farming item make. If you don't ever leave the lane, this combo doesn't really do anything for you. The amount of farm that you can earn from the lane creeps does not change depending on how fast you can kill them in the laning phase, because the goal of the laning phase is to keep laning phase going until you've farmed enough. Only 5 creeps spawn every 30 seconds, and if you kill all 5 in 10 seconds, then you're pushing the wave. But soon it'll just push back, and you'll be stuck again with only 5 creeps to farm. With Quelling Blade and Stout Shield, however, you have the ability to add onto that 10 creep per minute farm speed by snagging your jungle camps. Honestly, for the price, this combo gives you so much. So much so that a lot of people keep both items in their inventory all the way up to the end of the game. A tier. Bottle comes next, and you might be surprised at where it falls. Bottle has been many things in its days. When I first began playing, Bottle was the item that everyone got. That and Courier, oddly. Yeah man, those were different times back then. Basically, you had a Bottle to yourself and a Courier to yourself, and you just bottle croaked and all that. When I first started playing Dota, Bottles had absolutely no slowing effect on Couriers, and you could buy as many Couriers as you wanted, which was good and bad. I'm sure you can remember why. But so, how do Bottles stand now? Are they still as good as they once were? I'd say absolutely not. Are they still good in general? Let's talk a bit. A bottle costs 650 gold, gives you 3 charges to restore 100 health and 50 mana, and refills when you pick up runes. Okay, awesome. But that means it doesn't give you anything if you don't pick up any runes. Okay, well it also replenishes in the fountain, so I'll just... Oh, right. You can't send it on a courier anymore. Okay, well how about... Oh, the bounty runes on both sides of me have been moved even further away from me. This kinda sucks. And see, that's pretty much it, right? Bottle used to be a fantastic item, so good in fact that it's been consistently nerfed ever since. It gives health and regen, and just the amount that you'd be able to need to stay on lane to be constantly farming, but beyond that, if you're not able to constantly refill it, it's just dead weight in your inventory. Honestly, I hate Bottle. I go out of my way to find alternatives to having to depend on it in nearly every single game I play. Solid D tier item. Morbid Mask is a great representative for the entirety of this next category of farming items. The Life Stealers. No, not that Life Stealer, but just all items that enable the wielder to be able to regain health in any meaningful way from attacking enemy units, right? The cheapest of those is Morbid Mask at 1,100 gold, and what it gives you is specifically 15% lifesteal of any attack damage dealt, as well as a not too shabby plus 10 attack damage. The reason that Mask is a farming item is that it allows for something that no other item so far, or beyond this for a really long time does, in that Morbid Mask allows you to farm in perpetuity, which means forever. It gives you an infinite amount of sustainability, and in reality, for a lot of heroes, that is the only thing that they would need to farm, and the only thing that they lack. Fun fact, Mask plus Quelling Blade means that you're healing for at least 4 extra health points at every hit. I guess that's good. Stop the presses, right? Morbid Mask also allows for the ability to shake off ever needing to waste time by going back to a shrine, or a healing teammate, or God forbid the fountain in order to keep your health up. Because of this, it honestly gets S tier, especially considering the absolute accessibility that it has. It's not a unique attack modifier, it's not a melee only ability, you don't have to go to the secret shop to get it. It builds into 3 distinctly different items with distinctly different playstyles. Honestly, Morbid Mask is one of my favorite farming items. But I will admit, it might be because it lets all sorts of heroes sneak that cheeky Roshan by 10 minutes. Shh. Hand of Midas is next, which might be a bit weird because technically the next item after this is actually cheaper than it. The reason Midas falls here is because that next item is of course Mask of Madness. And as we've already established, Morbid Mask already does part of that item's job, so there's really not much of a rush to get it. Midas, on the other hand, people have been known to not buy a single item at the fountain in order to rush it faster. It's dumb, but they do it. Midas costs 2150 gold, 500 gold from Gloves of Haste, and a hefty 1650 gold recipe. It costs 30 attack speed. It's pretty good for that. Oh, and it also instantly kills a non-hero unit for 200 gold and 1.85 the experience that that unit would have normally given. On a cooldown of 90 seconds. We're going to talk about it. Oh god. So let's talk about it. This will take a while, as in a whole video to itself levels of a while. Hand of Midas is one of the most misunderstood and misused items in all of Dota, so I guess for you special pledges I can sort of show you the way, right? Basically it's an item that just costs enough to push it to potentially get picked up a little under 10 minutes, and that's good, because we're about to do a lot of math, so don't mind the bombardment of random numbers at your face for a bit. At the very end, they'll seamlessly tie into everything else. According to DotaBuff, the average game length is about 41 minutes long, adding on an average of 5 minutes if there's a Techie, Sniper, or Tinker, and taking away 5 minutes if there's a Broodmother, Meepo, or Visage. The Techie's one makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, it's kind of weird that it's only 5 minutes. Why am I telling you this? Well, it'll feed into how good Midas really is in a bit. Truth be told, I don't even know if Midas is really that good. This video is as much an educational experience to me writing it as it is to you watching it. Midas' worth as an item ties directly into overall gold gained over the total length of a game, and same with experience. I mean, without me throwing numbers at you, you'd already be able to infer that if the average length of a Dota game was 10 minutes, and Midas required 10 minutes to farm to pick up, Midas would be a bad item. So that so far is pretty well understood by all parties involved, right? Before we get into the crazy stuff, don't forget that even without using its active, Transmute, it's still a 30 attack speed item. That's not really anything to knock. Yasha is a 26 attack speed item, even including the added agility, and the only item cheaper than Midas that also gives 30 attack speed or more is Powered Treads when set to agility, also known as the boots that you'd go when you need attack speed. They're the staple of any Faceless Void, Anti-Mage, all heroes who depend on spells to proc, or depend on a lot of physical damage but just need the attack speed, and either coincidentally or specifically because of these heroes having procs that depend on their attacks, nearly every single one of the heroes that can have those spells are carries, or at the very least, cores, which means that a lot of them can go Midas. So does that mean that in reality there could and maybe even should be a whole cavalcade of new heroes going Midas on account of its attack speed plus active? Or maybe. Maelstrom no longer gives attack speed anymore, and that was usually the go-to for all heroes who wanted to capitalize off of more attack speed with their procs and the lightning proc from the item itself. So in reality, not even bringing up the active, I'd say that Hand of Midas could easily find itself in mid-C tier, but what happens when we do bring up the active? Well, Midas, no matter what creep you're transmuting, will always give you 200 gold and 1.85 times the amount of experience that you'd normally get from that creep. Not 200 bonus gold, 200 gold. No more, no less. If you were to somehow come across a creep that gave you 500 gold upon you killing it, Midas would actually cause you to lose out on gold every time you transmuted that type of creep. Luckily, that sort of creep doesn't actually exist. The most amount of gold that you can get from a single creep is 80 gold from a Siege creep, or 73 gold from a Satyr Tormentor, you know, the big ugly pink ones. You can get 137 gold from killing an Ancient Black Dragon, but you can't really Midas Ancient creeps, so we're ignoring them for now. Okay, so obviously if that's the case, if we can only ever get a static amount of gold while using Midas, clearly we should just Midas the littlest, most worthless, most insignificant creeps in the game. Sorry, little kobold, but I mean you. But no, not necessarily. I mean, yeah, with the information that you've gained so far, that would be true. I mean, if this were the only parameter that you could use to measure Midas's optimal usage, then yes, absolutely it would be a kobold, or whatever is the creep that gives you the least amount of gold by default wherever you are on the map. Which leads to a new conundrum. Midas will only ever give you gold if you're actively choosing to use it. Already we've made it useless to all of the newer players who keep forgetting that they even have a Midas, and hey man, don't fret about that sort of thing. I didn't even get into the habit of constantly positioning myself near a creep for when my Midas is off cooldown until like a week ago. So if you miss it a couple of times, it's not the end of the world, and everybody's done it. I mean, nobody starts off playing Dota 2 good, right? Everyone's shit. The default starting position for every new player is shit, and then through practice and perseverance and educating yourself by virtue of perhaps listening to the only New Zealand astronaut in existence, you slowly become good, or at least better. It's a process, right? The only thing that stops you from doing that is just simply not wanting to, just simply deciding to plateau. If you want to be better, you'll become better. There's no secret for remembering to Midas a creep when it's off cooldown, you just do it enough and it becomes muscle memory. But what happens if you do forget? Well, Midas gives 200 gold every 90 seconds, right? So in reality, you'd be able to actually calculate that as a gold per second formula, right? 200 gold every 90 seconds turns into 2.22 gold every second. That's the amount of gold that we're gaining if you were to instantly use Midas every time it was off cooldown. Okay, so that's good. It also means that every second that Midas is off cooldown and not being used, we are actually losing a potential 2.22 gold every second. Yikes, okay, so I guess that means that it's absolutely probably better to Midas any creep, regardless of type, just so that you can keep it on cooldown, but that also gets a sort of yes and no answer. Midas costs 2150 gold, and ignoring the usefulness of the innate 30 attack speed, and you could make the argument that it would take, honestly, 10.75 uses of Hand of Midas before it even starts making you more money than you would have had you just never bought Hand of Midas in the first place. That's kind of a lot, dude. 10.75 uses with 90 seconds in between takes us to 16 minutes after we get Midas for us to start benefiting from the Midas. And that's if we use it every single time it's off cooldown. So, if we get it at 10 minutes, like we estimated, in 26 minutes we're useful? My god, I've had games end at 25. Wow, okay, when you word it like that, it sort of sounds like an awful item. But again, yes and no. Because this is looking at Midas in a vacuum, much in the same way that killing a small creep is efficient for farming, because that's not true. Why are you getting a Midas? It's for farming, right? If it's for farming, wouldn't this allude to the fact that without a Midas, you were struggling to farm? Could this possibly be due to a perhaps lack of damage? Okay, so now we've acquired an item that insta-kills a creep while also giving you gold. The gold part's great. The insta-killing of a creep is great too, because in a game of Dota, you're constantly in a race against time over all else. Time dictates how much farm the enemy team's carry has, time dictates how many creeps are spawning, how tanky Roshan is, all of that. And if it takes an hour, let's say, to kill a large creep that you could have instantly killed immediately with your Midas, then we have to question if using it on a small creep was even a good idea. Okay, so here, if you're a hero that bought Midas to farm while also having an ability that assists in quickly killing the big creeps, then absolutely just use it on the little ones. If not, it gets a bit more complicated. Because now we factor in experience, which absolutely shakes up the formula we've used so far, because no item in the game can give experience, other than Tome, which is a limited asset. Sure, some indirectly give experience by allowing you to farm more places faster, but no items literally create experience from nothing. Dota's resources aren't unlimited. There is a finite amount of farm that can be had every minute, and that is split 10 times by every hero in that game. So let's imagine a thought experiment, right, where there's only 2 heroes and 2 creeps every minute. You can kill 1 creep, and the other hero can kill 2. There is absolutely no item that tips the scale in your favor here. No matter what you build, you will always simply end that minute with the same amount of farm as your enemy. You can kill this 1 creep in 1 attack, or it could take you the whole 60 seconds. It doesn't matter. By the end of that minute, you will have gained the same amount of XP as the enemy. But not with Midas. So let's just naturally expand this thought experiment into a real game. Now, your entire team has Midases, for some reason, yet you own the same amount of the map as the enemy team and farm the same amount of creeps, right? Just imagine a line straight down a diagonal. You can call it the river. Minus the entire team having Midases, this is a very common occurrence in nearly every game. Actually, to be fair, I've even seen it a couple of times with everyone having Midases, but no comment there. You undoubtedly come out of that scenario better off than your enemies. While Midas costs 2150 gold, it actually costs 0 experience. So in actual fact, if you're a hero who wants experience more than gold, so like a hero that just does not care about gold at all, like a Phoenix or like a Warlock or Crystal Maiden, this item literally instantly accelerates your farming capabilities from the first time that you use it. When sizing up every creep and deciding which to kill, consider this. The lane creeps give 57 experience for melee, 69 for ranged, and 88 for siege. Overall, that's pretty decent, especially if you're spending most of your time on lane, unable to make it to the jungle. In fact, there are very few creeps who actually give more experience than that, considering all of the major nerfs to jungle over the years. The only creeps that can even beat that are the Alpha Wolf and Hellbear. They give you 70, and all of the 5 larger jungle creeps at 95 each. So with all of this information, we can actually extrapolate the perfect creep to transmute for any type of hero. For all heroes that want experience over gold, go for the Dark Troll Summoner. It gives 47-ish gold, but with Midas gives 175.75 experience. The other big creeps give the same, but they also give more gold that you're ending up losing with the Midas' static 200 gold gain. If you're wanting as much gold as possible, while also playing a hero that can kill big creeps with straight auto attacks, kill whatever little creep is nearby. And if you're wanting a nicer mid-ground, honestly, killing any of the melee creeps, not the ranged creeps, could do you well. In the days of talents giving extra damage, extra XP, extra gold, it's a weird and tumultuous time for Midas. Heroes like Invoker are getting them every game, of course, because they give the attack speed that benefits from Exhort, they give you experience, which is something that Invoker wants, gives you gold, but even heroes like Crystal Maiden pick them up from time to time to benefit from the insanely powerful talents that she has that she wouldn't normally have access to. I love Midas, more than I probably should. It's a unique item that allows for further items and builds and playstyles that normally wouldn't be feasible. And you know me, I'm all about them builds that straight up aren't feasible. I'm preaching to the choir here, but Legion Commander going Hand of Midas probably isn't very good. But you guys already knew that. The people who actually go that strat don't watch educational videos in order to help them get better, which is the problem. A Midas rush on heroes like that suck because of the opportunity cost of getting that item. Opportunity cost refers to the now impossible options that you did have prior to picking up Midas. With 2150 gold, you could have bought travels or drums. You're 100 gold away from a blink. You could have tanked up with a Vanguard. But because you went Midas, you now no longer have the option to get any of those other items, while also not being able to get them any faster through the use of Midas, with it paying for itself after 16 minutes. Legion Commander benefits from a blink dagger because it helps her trump her innate lack of range from which to cast duel. And there are so many heroes that wish that they could have just a little bit more health, but then went Midas instead of Vanguard, and proceeded to die 20 times over. So the best heroes to get Midas on actually end up being heroes who don't need items, ironically, or heroes who absolutely do need items for the late game. It's one of those really bizarre and unique occurrences where the best heroes to get Midases are position 5s and position 1s, with an inverse bell curve in between them. Huh, look at that. With all that said, Midas is still a fantastic item that compensates for its drawbacks in pushing your power curve back 10 to 20 minutes in a major way by accelerating insanely everything past that point. Plus, it gives you experience with no downtime. It's not necessarily an S tier item on account of all of these drawbacks, unless of course you're constantly playing heroes that only ever care about experience and don't care about gold at all, if you're like a Phoenix spammer or something. But even Phoenix benefits from Veil, because it helps him farm faster with the use of his spells. Midas works on him, but there's always something potentially better. I don't know what that really means. Does that mean Midas is bad, or does that mean that Midas is not good enough? I don't know. It's not S tier, absolutely, but when it works, hey, A tier. Absolutely A tier. Now, after all of that time, we should probably get back to your regularly scheduled programming. Next on the agenda is Mask of Madness, and don't worry, we won't be spending 12 minutes talking about it as much as I want to. From this point on, we'll be making a concerted push to really only talk about the absolute necessities for understanding the intricacies of all of these items. So, the absolute necessities for Mask of Madness. It lets you solo Roche as Crystal Maiden! Okay, I'm kidding, calm down. To be fair, even when seriously talking about Mask of Madness, it might seem like we're joking because, I mean, really, on paper, this item does seem like a bit of a practical joke, right? A joke on whom? I don't know, but let's get into it. For 1,975 gold, you get an item that gives you 15% lifesteal, 10 attack speed, and 20 attack damage, which is a relatively new change, and something that's been added after this item was considered by me to be a fantastic pickup. So, hey, Ice Frog, thanks for the buff. As I said, it's built out of a Morbid mask, but also out of a quarterstaff. There's no recipe. It's a pretty easy build-up, and it gives you one of the greatest actives in Dota. For 12 seconds, you are silenced, you gain 12% movement speed, you lose 8 armor, and you gain 110 attack speed. There is no item beyond Moonshard that gives you this. And Moonshard is 4k gold. Mask of Madness is not. But Eric, I hear you say, it also silences and makes you take more damage. That makes it bad. To which I'd say, what? What? No, it doesn't. Alright, okay. So there's this concept with all of these high-risk, high-reward items in Dota, whereupon you find that every single amazingly overpowered ability is balanced, quote-unquote, by an equally negative debuff or penalty for using it. But that's dumb. No one is forcing you to use Mask of Madness. The onus is on you to press the hotkey that activates its ability. Without activating the ability, you get absolutely none of the downsides, right? You also don't get any of the upsides, but that's okay. It's like saying crossings on roads are dangerous because while walking across the road, you could get hit by a car. I mean, yeah, you could if you randomly just chose to walk out at a completely arbitrary time instead of waiting for the perfect moment to cross the road. It's not like we have to use it all the time. In fact, it's not like we have to use it at all. Honestly, buying Mask of Madness and deliberately not using it because you never have a good opportunity is kind of a sign of a really thoughtful player. That, or just a guy who has broken hotkeys. Mask of Madness gives an amazing active for 8 seconds. Simply just don't be in harm's way during that 8 seconds. If you're Faceless Void, don't use it within a chronosphere because obviously you're going to be silenced by the time it's done. You know, just be thoughtful about this sort of thing. Considering this category is for farming items, farming, by its very nature, is a lot less hazardous than constantly entering team fights. Creeps are predictable. If you're a ranged hero like Medusa farming in the jungle, then you have the potential to never once deal with the downsides of Mask of Madness. The creeps die before they reach you, and you would just auto-attacking without your spells anyway. With that said though, the silence does mess up your flow on heroes that have attacks, but also a farming spell like Medusa with Mystic Snake. Honestly, I like this item way more before it took away your ability to use spells. And it's not purgeable with BKB, so I gotta deduct some points. Purely for farming, this gets a C. Highly situational, but when it's good, it's great. The next item on the list is Vanguard, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. Vanguard is just the example given for the topic of mid-game health options. You can imagine Vanguard as anything, like Mechanism or something. Included in this list that we're about to talk about right now is anything bought from a Ring of Health, or anything that has a Vit Booster or Headdress or something added to it, because all of these items give one thing, and that's health. Health in some way. Some give it in the form of durability and negating damage taken, some give it directly through strength and HP regen. But uniformly, none of these items give damage. Because of that, they all suffer from being extremely situational, and still pretty bad even when it's a good idea to pick them up. Think about your axes and your bristlebacks and your specters. Axe already benefits from getting another item over Vanguard. You'd consider Vanguard the worst of the two options. Bristleback can go other items too, more aggressive items. Spectre, I mean dude, Spectre could rush Radiance, but she doesn't because she needs the Vanguard. And I don't really know if I'm okay with that. Needing an item just because it stops you from dying isn't necessarily the same as needing an item because it wins you a game. Not one of these heroes farms faster with a Vanguard, or with a mech, or with anything like that, but they do farm safer. But safe is boring, and there's usually a better item. D-tier. But now we're getting into some really interesting territory. We touched on it a little bit with X, because the next item is Blink Dagger. For every hero in the game, there are two numbers that factor into their farming speed. Arguably. The first is how fast that they can kill creeps. That's a given, right? Obvious. But the second, and I'd argue more important number, is how fast that they can get from creep to creep. I say that because there's a hard limit to the speed in which you can kill creeps, and most heroes can honestly reach it pretty early. Anti-Mage reaches it with Treads and Battle Fury, Axe reaches it as soon as he levels up Counter Helix. But they still don't reach peak performance with that. The reason Anti-Mage is considered one of the most carriest of carries is simply because he does both. He has both of those factors in mind. As soon as he gets Battle Fury, he can both kill creeps fast and get to creeps fast with his blink. It's why he's seen as one of the hardest carries when he's really not. He's far from it. What he is though is the fastest of carries. Very few heroes can reach level 25 and 6 slots filled before Anti-Mage, but with Blink Dagger, they can sure try. Blink Dagger's 2,250 gold, and you know what it does. It blinks you. Basically, Blink Dagger as a farming tool beats out most other items due to the simple fact that it allows for constant and consistent farm, with no downtime waddling between two camps 1,200 units apart. For some heroes, there are very, very few items that increase your farming potential like Blink, and considering every hero could get a Blink, this item absolutely reaches the upper echelons of the tier chart and finds itself snugly in S tier. I mean shit dude, we just had a video where I told you to get it on Anti-Mage. Blink Dagger is an amazing farming item. Next up on the list is Old Familiar. Didn't we just talk about this at length a few videos back? Because, oh, would you look at that? It's Necronomicon. This poor guy fell extremely short in the Aura Wars tiered chart, and something tells me that this bad boy is going to do pretty much the exact same thing here. And that something is me from the future. I mean, I already know I'm recording this right now. I've already written the script. I already know what's going to happen with these videos. I already know that Necro is going to get a pretty mediocre rating, and I'm going to tell 2 hilarious jokes and 1 embarrassing one to keep myself relatable. It's a system, dude. I'm not just talking out my ass with no purpose here. So speeding through, Necro 1 is what we'll use exclusively to weigh up how useful the item is as a farming aid. I mean, it is the first part of it, right? And you'd hope it would only take 1 book to accelerate your farm in order to get the other bits. Anyway, Necro 1 gives 10 strength and 1 mana. For this fact alone, it is pretty good on nearly every single hero in the game. But who's it best on? Sniper. We all know that the item spawns 2 units, right? Ignore the sniper thing that I just said. At level 1, the Necro Warrior has 700 health and deals 75 damage with an alright attack speed, I guess. Okay, so no matter what, it is an extra 75 damage. That's inarguable. It's pretty good with that. What other item can claim that they do that? I mean, Sacred Relic, not even. That only deals 60 damage, and it's a bit more at 3,800 gold compared to the 2,400 gold that we put into Necro 1. Well, alright. But then there's also the mana break it has too. That gives 15 extra damage if the unit has mana. Okay. But then there's also the Necro Archer with 58 damage more. So you're telling me that this 2,400 gold item that I never get on any hero ever gives me 133 extra damage? No, I'm not quite telling you that, dear viewer, because it in fact gives you more. Alright, this will blow your mind. Both Necro units spawn into the game with the piercing attack damage type. Piercing. It's the 4th attack damage type after Hero, Basic, and Siege. I bet you'll never guess what the attack damage type heroes have. Basically, hero damage deals 1000% to all except structures, where it deals 50%. Basic damage, named so because of the fact that like every basic creep deals that damage, deals 75% to heroes, 100% to basic, and 70% to structures. So more than heroes. Okay, weird. Siege obviously deals mega amounts to towers, Siege creeps have that, surprisingly, but Pierce, the damage type reserved for most wards, most ranged ancient creeps, and the Necro units, deals 50% to heroes, which is worse, but to compensate it deals 150% to basic. Without question, pierce damage dealing heroes are the best at killing creeps. But when have you, specifically, ever used Necrobook to farm creeps? You use it to farm towers, right? But it only deals 35% to towers. So why are you using it like that? Is it perhaps because every other person tells you that it should be like that? Well, why do they do it? Is it perhaps that people above them also do the exact same thing and influence their way of playing? I mean, if you really think about it, you could go all the way to the top and find that every single person is just the blind leading the blind. Why do you take towers with a Necrobook if Necrobook doesn't do that much damage to towers? You can't really be considered wrong if numerically it does more in camps. Honestly, I think the next hero build that I do will be around Necrobook. And not like a Beastmaster or a Lycan around Necrobook. Someone like Oracle. And yet it's never used for this purpose. Told you it would blow your mind, eh? What is stopping people from simply buying this to farm rather than to push with farming as a byproduct? You know, after the tower's gone, you send the creeps to just die in the jungle, just auto-attacking some creeps. I don't know, by all accounts it really just doesn't make sense. PS creeps deal 35% to towers. At least at level 1 and level 2, Necrobook kinda sucks for pushing, but it's amazing at farming. If you know how to micro, you can use the ranged creep as a pseudo observer ward that's constantly giving you vision and blocking off the choke points you happen to be farming near. And with a bit more micro, you can use this item as a way to avoid ever taking any damage. Necro Warrior tanks 700 damage before dying, so in reality he can tank 699 damage without you ever losing his effectiveness. And same with the Archer. Farm with this. 90-second cooldown, 60-second duration. It's up more than it's not. You ready for some controversy? Necrobook, if you were to only ever use it in this new way, contrary to the way that you usually use it, would get an S tier ranking. Boom. Alright, and now moving on to... Wait a second. I said earlier that I'd... But I told no jokes just then, and then gave Necrobook an awesome rating. I guess I was talking out my arse earlier. Don't pretend like that was a surprise. Speaking of things that are absolutely not a surprise, the next item on the list is Meteor Hammer. You've heard of Meteor Hammer, right? Because of course I'd consider this a farming item. But don't give me that look, dude. It's awesome! For 2,625 gold, you get 12 strength, 12 int, 4 HP regen, 1.5 mana regen, and that's it. That's it. A tier. Wow, this is a fantastic item. Well, moving on, but oh right, no, except that's not it. Right? We both know that this bad boy has an active. Meteor Hammer's ability, Meteor Hammer, causes a slurry of meteors to come raining down in a 300 AoE, like a hammer, sort of. After 2.5 seconds of channeling and 0.5 seconds of delay. After that time, the meteors land, deal 150 damage, stun for 2 seconds, and burn for 6 seconds. The unit damage is 90 per second, and the building damage is 50, because it does building damage. Oh, yeah, and you can do this every 28 seconds. Meteor Hammer is the greatest item ever conceived by man or god. Not only does it deal 690 damage to any units hit by it, more than a Dagon does, which costs more than a Meteor Hammer and only deals damage to one person. I mean, oh god, dude, thinking about this item just makes me happy. Again, it's a case of it being an amazing effect that's balanced by a difficulty in landing it, but what happens if you land every single one, you know? Just hypothetically, does that mean that not only is this item giving us uniformly insane stats and health and regen and all that, it's also giving us 690 damage every 28 seconds in an AoE? Huh, that's funny. I could have sworn something else happens every around about 30 seconds in a Dota game. Oh right, creeps spawn. Creeps are separated by 30 seconds. Unless of course you're going up and down the lane, in which case obviously you traveling is going... Well anyway, also they don't run out of the Meteor Hammer AoE. If you manage to miss with Meteor Hammer, well, honestly, it's okay. Just keep at it, friend, and you'll nail it. Keep it up. There are so many amazing heroes in the game that are balanced by the fact that they have no flash farming capabilities. Bane's the infamous one. Not a single ability that he has assists in farming. But Nightmare pairs up pretty well with Meteor Hammer. Disruptor's another. He doesn't really have anything other than maybe his Q to farm. But again, Kinetic Field pairs up pretty well with Meteor Hammer. Meteor Hammer, strictly as a farming item, does something that very, very few items let you do for a not hefty price of less than 3k gold. With Meteor Hammer, you can flash farm on non-flash farmers. Honestly, it's amazing, not even taking into account its usefulness as a pushing tool as well. You can channel it during certain types of forced movement, like Phoenix's Icarus Dive and Stormspread's Ball Lightning. But honestly, just the idea that non-farmers can all of a sudden just become farmers makes this one of the best overall farming items in the game. This thing's an equal opportunity item. Screw Battle Fury requiring only melee heroes to pick it up. Screw items like Maelstrom that ask you to be able to stack attack speed. Meteor Hammer needs nothing. Before we wrap up with it, here's a little trick. Build it on Chaos Knights. Do your stun, do your W, and then while all of your illusions are mushed up, whacking away at the person that you've stunned, channel Meteor Hammer on your main one. Nobody does this, nobody can see it really, and while I can't honestly say it's the greatest strat in the game, I mean it's easily countered by just a wayward stun, by god dude, it's just fun. Remember fun? Speaking of Maelstrom though, Maelstrom. Maelstrom's an item that costs 2,700 gold, gives you plus 24 attack damage, no attack speed anymore, and is built from a mithril hammer and a javelin, no recipe. The active, Chain Lightning, grants a 25% chance to cast what is essentially a chain of lightning, funnily enough, between 4 targets within a 900 radius, dealing 160 magical damage to each. It can't bounce to the same person, but I like your thinking. And, like crits, every single hit that procs the lightning also pierces evasion. Therefore, funnily enough, a possible counter to a 100% evasion PA or Wind Ranger is to actually build 6 Maelstrom. I wouldn't recommend it, but this would actually negate nearly 100% of that hero's evasion, because with 6 Maelstroms you proc lightning about 95 attacks out of 100. The problem is that that's absolutely wrong. That is a bold-faced lie, and I need to make this known. I'm sorry that I lied to you, but I needed to really catch your attention here. People haven't picked up on this yet, but Maelstrom and Mjolnir don't allow for stacking, and haven't for a very long time. You gain absolutely nothing but the plus 24 attack damage when stacking Maelstrom. It goes even further. Not even Mjolnir plus Maelstrom stack. Any item that procs the Chain Lightning ability is deactivated if another older one remains in your inventory. Do not stack these. But basically Maelstrom's claim to fame is that it's the item for a carry built around the core concept of depending on attack speed or the ability to instantly attack an immense amount of times at once to carry you through a game. Think heroes like Wind Ranger, Sniper, Ember Spirit, and Weaver. Can you name a single item that would actually be better on these guys? Other than Meteor Hammer. And I mean, that's just the thing, right? Maelstrom is a very specific niche item, but in that niche, it excels. With the change from giving attack speed to giving attack damage now, it's opened itself up a little bit to more heroes benefiting from it, while overall making it a little weaker for those heroes who used to really love it. Because of those changes, B tier. But if you want to build it on Razor or Zeus for roleplay reasons, you can definitely bump that up to an S tier. I hope over the course of these many entries into the series that I've instilled into you this idea that farming items don't strictly have to be items that directly assist in killing more creeps faster. Sure, Battle Fury and Radiance, Necro and Meteor Hammer will multiply the amount of creeps you can be killing in one go, but just the ability to hit more creeps at once does not a farming item make. Because in reality, there's plenty of heroes who already have the ability to farm innately through their spells. The one thing that holds all heroes back is the simple truth that they don't got no mana, gov. So that's the problem, right? And here's the solution. Yule's Scepter of Divinity is a 2,750 gold item that offers 10 intelligence, 30 movement speed, and a 2.25 mana regen. It also has the Cyclone active, but that's not important. What is the regen. All up, there are 25 items in the game that give direct mana regen from 0.5 all the way up to 5, with Refresher Rob. Most of these 25 items give exactly 2.25 mana regen. You'd call this the sweet spot for mana regen items. If they gave less, they're worse, and if they gave more, they'd be called Refresher, because yes, the only item that gives more than 2.25 gives over 2 times more at 5. You already know that I'm going to say that out of all of those items, Yule's is the absolute cheapest, followed by Orchid, a nearly doubled gold cost. 2.25 mana equates to at least 135 mana a minute, pretty much the same as Arcane Boots, but Yule's can be picked up in tandem with other boots, and in fact, probably should. To really prove my point on the mana regen value though, if you were to calculate every item's mana regen value in relation to their gold value, you'd find that Yule's comes 7th, only being beaten out by early game or unfinished items like Raindrops, Sage's Mask, Voidstone, Urn, Perseverance, or an item that you're not even going to have for another 20 minutes, with Refresher Orb. If you've somehow found a way to work Refresher Orb into a farming item for some crazy strat, you're a better guide maker than me. Send me a link to your video when it's all done, because I'd kinda love to see it done. Like Blink Dagger before it, Yule's scores highly by virtue of there being no better item in its specific niche. It's very, very specific niche, but still, unfortunately, because Yule's works on so few heroes compared to Blink, it can only really get a B rating. But man, oh man, screw all that noise that came before, right? More than 45 minutes into this discussion about farming items do we get to the most actual farming item. I am, of course, talking about Meteor Hammer again. No, of course I'm kidding. It's Battle Fury. Battle Fury is a 4400 gold item that gives 6 HP regen, 2.25 mana regen, remember that, and 45 attack damage. Without listing a single other thing about it, this already becomes the prototypical farming item, right? It has absolutely everything that all of the other farming items have had so far. All items have one feature that lets you farm with them, either HP or mana regen, to keep you sustained and not needing to go back to base, attack damage with which to kill creeps faster, and even a way to get to camps faster. Battle Fury has the ability to chop trees, remember, which it arguably does help with that, I mean technically, and when a game can be decided in a couple of seconds, with like a 50 gold disparity between your carry and their carry, where he can afford a BKB but you can't, I mean, it pays to be efficient as possible. But obviously that's not really what I'm going to be talking about here, because Battle Fury also has Cleave. Cleave in this regard deals 40% of your attack damage in a 625 trapezoidy shape around your target. It extends outwards 625 range, but only expands widthwise 330 at its apex. Cleave damage isn't really reduced by armor value. Ranged heroes can't really benefit from it. And that's it. This next part's going to be a surprise to some of you and a relief to hear vocalized to the rest of you. The dividing line is between people who watch other people build Battle Fury and then people who have experienced building Battle Fury themselves. Battle Fury sucks. It is a really bad item. There are many small problems that add to it, but one of the big problems lies in the fact that Cleave, outside of farming, is a useless ability. Kunkka's Tidebringer Cleave has insane range, double what Battle Fury gives you, so it's good. Sven's gives you 70% damage, over 40% with Battle Fury. Magnus's is free and can be given to anyone. Battle Fury's Cleave offers nothing meaningful for the buy-in of 4400 gold. Beyond illusions, very rarely will you find yourself successfully dealing damage to an enemy hero who stands behind the hero you're hitting. On first hit, they just reposition and you're stuck cleaving the wind. Sven's matters less because you might actually kill the enemy in the 2 hits it takes them to get out of cleave range. Ember can't also reliably use it either on account of the randomness of the splash caused by the randomness of the position of Ember Spirit himself during Sleight of Fist. But it wouldn't really be too bad, except for the fact that Maelstrom exists, and does arguably the same job. Less well, but for cheaper. There's a reason Battle Fury just barely has a 54% win rate, even when it's so sought after. In fact, it is the lowest win rate for any item that costs 4400 gold or more. It's a bad item, brought down by the fact that people consider it a good item, who rush it because they think they have to, lose the game around them as they farm for a 4000 gold item, and then fail to recoup their losses because the item that they just picked up doesn't actually offer any way of coming back into the game post-pickup. I hate Battle Fury. It's one of my least favorite items, and I think it's intrinsically tied to how much the rest of the Dota playing world loves it. Is that the textbook definition of a hipster? Oh well, F tier. It might seem harsh, I know. I'm sorry, Battle Fury, but if I were to give you a D tier, people might not realize that they should stop going in. I've got to make a statement. I'm sorry, Battle Fury, you have to stay here, just for now. When people ease up on buying you, maybe I'll surreptitiously bump you up a little bit. Shh. For now. But next on the list is Manta. At 4800 gold, it gives you pretty awesome stats, all things considered. 10 strength, 10 int, 10 attack speed, 26 agility. That's 4 armor, 36 attack speed. It also gives 8% movement speed, just in case you were thinking it was too good already. Honestly, even just picking up half of this item, just the Yasha part, could be considered a smart farming decision. Yasha helps get from place to place, and, especially for agility heroes, helps you kill creeps faster, too. Manta just doubles up on that, because Manta style creates 2 illusions of your hero that last 20 seconds, on a cooldown of 30 for melee, and 15 more, 45, for ranged. If you're fast, every use of Manta could snag you 1 more wave on that lane, every wave. Illusions dying mean nothing to you, so you can send them into potentially dangerous enemy territory and freely just expend some mana in return with a creep wave worth of gold. If you're really balling, you can kill a hero while you're at it, but at that point you probably didn't need to be farming anymore. The problem with Manta is, of course, the disparity between melee and ranged, yet again, just like Battle Fury. Ranged units always seem to get shafted with farming items. And yet, if I got you to name 5 Manta-style heroes, 4 of them would be ranged heroes. Terrorblade kinda counts, I know. And I also know that one of you is going to suggest Medusa just to make me mad. Where Medusa beats out Battle Fury is in its utility beyond farming. Manta disjoints projectiles, lets you dispel yourself, lets you disorient your opponent, and even just in regards with farming, it can still become even more powerful beyond its first initial pickup. Just the simple fact that you level up more can impact Manta's power, as does tanking up, building Diff Blade, buying crit, buying any attack speed, evasion, armlet and turning that on, Vanguard, and of course, Radiance Octarine. In all honesty, Manta, while a great farming item, honestly just does everything better than it does farming. And still, it helps farming. The problems arise when you start considering that, oh wait, right, you can't do multiple things at the same time. You can't farm with it while also saving it for escapes or dispels. You can't use it to split push while also using it to tank damage between 3 units rather than 1. And in reality, the damage dealt by illusions are at most 33% for melee and 28% for ranged. So now the question becomes, if you were struggling to farm beforehand, so much so that it caused you to seek out Manta, do you even have the damage necessary to utilize Manta as a farming item? Shit, dude, I mean, if I just stopped talking about half a paragraph ago and just given the rating right there and then, Manta might have been a top tier pickup, but the more we get into the nitty gritty, the more it's just turning into a massive onslaught of negatives. So let's be bipartisan here. Let's actually answer the question instead of just leaving it up to a rhetorical. If you dealt, let's say 100 damage before Manta, you'd all of a sudden gain either 10 or 36 extra damage, plus attack speed, strength, and mana, all that. The mana, unfortunately, immediately leaves you again upon casting Manta once, because you're not really gaining mana if the item that gave you the mana also costs more mana than it gave you to cast it. But still, now we're at 110 damage, maybe 136. Regardless of what type of hero we are, we have 36 attack speed, and that's more than halfway to an Assault Cuirass, and illusions use attack speed as an increasable stat, so maybe it does work out for itself in the end. But with all that said, strictly as a farming item, Manta gets a solid C. Unless of course you're Luna, in which case it gets an S+. But now we're finally on to one of the top farming items. The item that you bowed in awe of when you first started playing. The item that you fell over backwards trying to farm before 30 minutes when you first tried Scepter. The item you always want to rush in the back of your mind every time you look down at your gold count at 8 minutes in and realize, hey, that's pretty much halfway to 3,800 golds. It'd be so easy just to farm a little longer. I mean, I'm not needing the gold right now. I haven't died yet. This clearly means that I'm not going to die ever. I mean, statistically that's true. I've never died, ergo I must be immortal. I could totally risk farming up 3,800 golds. And of course, I'm talking about Sacred Relic into Divine Rapier. I mean, what'd you think I was gonna say? Yeah, on second thought, this video is getting on in minutes, so let's just talk about Rapier another time and maybe focus on the next item, Radiance. Radiance is, by far, the greatest risk-reward item in the entirety of Dota, ignoring, of course, another item that we just mentioned. At a whopping 5150 gold, it would take exactly 50.05 minutes of standing around completely idle, amassing passive gold to be able to afford it. That's about 3 games. If we were to instead ignore passive gold, it would take you 22 waves of getting every last creep hit, around 120 creeps. The fastest speed you'd be able to get Radiance, factoring in starting gold, passive gold, but ignoring all towers, hero kills, or, I mean, to be honest, deaths on account of you having no items on account of you rushing Radiance, or jungle camp kills. Well, hypothetically, it'd be possible to get a Radiance in exactly 9 minutes. What? Okay, you can make around 210 gold, averaging the waves that have multiple sieges, ranged creeps, or all that sort of stuff. Every single creep beyond 7 minutes 30 gets a little bit more, but okay, 210 gold is what you get per wave, if you were to get every single last hit. Each wave comes twice a minute. Every minute, you make 420 gold, plus 91 extra passive gold on account of you making 1 gold every 0.66 seconds passively, right? Okay, so, all up, 511 GPM. At the start of the game somehow. It seems odd, right? But it's possible. Because you begin with 600 gold, and you for some reason very smartly decided, I don't need any tangos, selves, wards, or couriers, no damage items, no stats, no nothing, straight and pure Sacred Relic Rush, you only need to farm 4,550 gold. A 4550 gold need divided by 511 gold per minute means that at 6.2 minutes in, you can afford that Sacred Relic, and at 9 minutes, or technically 8.9, you can afford Radiance. At 9 minutes in. Unfortunately, there's about 5, maybe even 9, or if you're me, maybe even 10, people in that game with the seemingly exclusive life goal of stopping that from ever happening. In reality, a good 18-minute Radiance is considered totally fine. Anything below 20 minutes, pretty much the same as Battle Fury really, but when Battle Fury gives HP regen and damage in the components of the item, which would then help to actually build the item. Radiance actually gives nothing. After 3,800 gold, around about the price of a full Battle Fury, right? Battle Fury is 4,400. Radiance's build-up gives you Relic, offering 60 damage. I mean, most people would actually consider Radiance pretty much built if you were to make it to Sacred Relic. With 60 damage, it pretty much rolls through the rest of the 1,350 gold needed. Imagine you're Sisyphus pushing that boulder up a hill with all of your might to have it then roll down again. Most historians would call the peak of that mountain Sacred Relic. It took 20 years to get from the bottom to that point, and it takes about 20 seconds to get from that point to a finished Radiance, if you get my analogy, right? But still, the journey up is the most painful thing you'll ever have to endure in Dota. The question is it worth it? Battle Fury begs to be built first. It offers everything in order for that to happen. It's built out of a Quelling Blade, out of a Void Stone, and Ring of Health. It's almost begging to be built accidentally just because its components are common pickups, even without them being parts of Battle Fury. Like, without Battle Fury even being an item, you could actually find an inventory filled with Perseverance, Quelling Blade, and Demon Edge, and nobody would find that really suspicious, because they're just good items. But this brings up something. Does Battle Fury beg to be built so early because it knows being built anytime after 13 minutes shows how absolutely useless and game-losing it truly is? Well, what does that make Radiance? Because where Fury falls down, Radiance rules. Radiance, a farming item, can be built at any point in the game. It can be built beyond other farming items. You can build it 50 minutes in. You can go Blink Dagger into Radiance, Vanguard into Radiance, a goddamn 4,800 gold Manta style into Radiance. And the thing is, it totally works. It works, dude. Rushing Radiance works. Skipping it works because, I mean, beyond being the most expensive, most powerful farming item, it's also one of the greatest items in general. So maybe we should talk about what it does, eh? Radiance gives 65 attack damage and a 60 DPS burn every second in a 700 radius that also causes enemies to have a miss chance of 17%. 65 attack damage is already nothing to scoff at, but an aura of miss chance and burn means, and I know I'm sounding like a broken record for the Patreon people, but all heroes you're fighting against are essentially having their overall damage potential nerfed, while also boosting the survivability of your entire team. It also deals damage constantly without you even needing to be focused on them. It counts as kiting, it counts as invis, it counts as sneaking around the backs of fights. I mean, that's just the thing, right? Keeping us focused on just the farming aspects of Radiance for this video, Radiance can, and maybe even should, be picked up when you can do it, rather than at a specific time that demands it being completed before. It can be built late game on tanky aura masters, like perhaps Wraith King, or on spell lifesteal users, Queen of Pain, Bristleback, on illusion heroes, Naga Siren, obviously, I mean, on anyone. But the fact remains, it's 5150 gold. As much as I wish I could just give it an S tier rating to match the tone with which that previous segment was given, I can't. Radiance has as many negatives as it does positives. And for that simple fact, Radiance, and the most difficult thing I've ever had to do in these guides, and that includes when I suggested playing Shadow Shaman, a support, as a support, I can only actually give Radiance a B. I'm sorry, Radiance. I'll still pick you up, I swear. And so, that's it. On the other side of the journey, I hope we can all return home having gained at least a little knowledge about one item or another. Behind me are the final results. I've left them up to sort of mull over. I hope you've enjoyed the video. The next only way to play video in store for you guys is, in fact, not decided yet, because it is, in fact, not up to me, because it is, in fact, up for vote. Would you like a breakdown of Invoker, Meepo, or fucking Rubik? Yeah, we're going there. No easy options for me, right? And did you think I was going to say Oracle? I mean, I thought you might have. I didn't put it there. Don't worry, all three of these guides are already in development, just waiting to be voted on to push them to the top. When I first began writing this video, I was going to make it a Patreon exclusive. Most of the videos that I do are Patreon exclusives at this point. This one very specifically isn't, and because I'm mentioning it here, the one that you pick also can't be a Patreon exclusive, because that would be unfair. So, with this video being public, the one that the Patreon people vote on will also be public. If you want to vote on it, donate to the Patreon thing. It's like, I think the cheapest one is $1 per video. If you honestly want to see Meepo over Invoker or Rubik over Meepo, vote. The one that gets chosen will come out in like a bunch of parts as they come out through November to the Patreon people, and then on the 1st of December to all of you people watching publicly. Specifically to leave Old Oracle right after, to be released, How would you like the 25th of December? Hang up your stockings, kids. Hi there, I hope you enjoyed this hour-long mega video of The Only Way to Play. Nothing too special, just something that I wanted to talk about. I didn't really go all out on effects or anything, or add in any animated skits, and I hope that's cool with you guys. I don't want to always have to hold myself to like a standard of constantly making amazing videos, because some topics are just kind of casual. It'd be awesome to just make video just sort of gushing about certain things. Because you've made it to the end of the video though, you would know that the Rubik or Meepo or Invoker video is about to come, and that, while being the same length as this, will be a high production value, extremely high quality skits and animated segments, and it's gonna be a big thing. The reason I can make a video like that is specifically due to my pledges. They are as follows. Chris, Sir 1996, Foxy fucking Loxley, Miles Lou, Mine Siege Towers, Asbestos, Kim Nelson, Lincoln, Shadow Sweetheart, Squirty McFlutty, Tefetu, Apache Murray wearing a headwear neckwear nicknamed as Hatcrafter, Carbon Bond, Christian Rudder Grumman. Hey, that's pretty good. Help. I'm still being held hostage by the Slark Blaze. It's Coup de Grace. Jolly Jew Giant, Keegan Mayer, King Gizzard and the Shitty Wizard, Kyle, Tsunami Shadow, Milacot, Minishu, Much Skill Very Pro Wow, Neutral Platonic Land-Based Vertebrate, Orange Filter Sky, Paul Morin, Peyton Dean, Procrastination Studios, Pro S, Punith P, Rhett Mitchell, Rick Flareon, Woo! RJ shouldn't have to play position 5 every game, Ruergum Fleur, Shiva's Guard, Scar, Spence Davis, Sterile, Cheryl, Taco God, Boomdog, Thomas Johnston, Uncommon Alias, Wazer107, Yabbis McGee, and Yeah Anime Titty, as well as every other name that's scrolling on the screen right now. Thank you so much. Catch you around.